So what we're going to do is we're going to do pedestrian crossings today, okay? So we're going to look at different types of pedestrian crossing and how to recognize them. Just remember that everything you see on the road, all the paint markings on the road, all the signs and everything else, those are the things that are going to tell you and warn you that you're approaching these pedestrian crossings. Okay, so let's just start with the first thing you'll get. That it's not always there, but a lot of times people will, this sign, the hazard warning sign, will tell you. And this is a long way back on the approach to a crossing. If there are particular crossings which are dangerous because of speed on the road or whatever, they tend to put up a sign to warn you that you've got to think about you're coming up to a crossing. Alright? Now, let's just start with the most basic form, and that's the zebra crossing, and probably sometimes the most difficult to interpret. Because what you've got to do is you've got to look out for pedestrians, and there are no signal controls that control these crossings. So you have to make decisions about how to approach them, when to stop, when not to stop. There's nothing apart from the rules that you have to rely on. Okay. So what we do is, first of all, when you've got a zebra crossing, you always find these beacons, which are police beacons. They're called police, B-E-L-I-C-E, police beacons. And then the poles with the black and white markings on them. That tells you that you're approaching a zebra crossing. So, sign, poles with the police beacons on them, and the zigzags on the road, and then obviously the markings on the road. But again, if it snows, you're not going to know that's a crossing unless there are other things sticking up, which you can see. Okay. So basically the question is, what's the difference between that crossing and this crossing? Okay, and the answer is simply, this one has an island in the middle, a refuge area in the middle, which turns it into two crossings. So this is one crossing, and that's a crossing, and that's a separate crossing. And that's the difference between the two. Now, the secret to doing these things more effectively is, first of all, to recognize them. That's the first thing, is see the crossing. Okay? Put a trigger in your mind that you can pick up the crossings. So you must know what to look for when you're driving, or you must know when you see something that it triggers that in your mind. Yeah? So look for that. Then the other thing is, look at what's happening on the pavements, because what's going to happen on the crossing will be first reflected on what's going on the pavements. Got it? So as you approach the crossing, you look whether anyone's approaching the crossing to cross. Now, if you think that person is he's running for a bus or something, bus station, so he's going to go and he's going to go across this crossing, you've got to be sure that you know that he's going to go there and he's going to use that crossing. You need to be able to stop in time. Alright? So as you approach, you look, if there's nothing on the pavements, nothing approach them, you hold your speed and you drive through. However, if you've got any doubt as to whether someone is about to use that crossing, you must slow down. And sometimes people will walk or stroll towards this crossing, and you know they're going to use it, and then you don't know whether they're going to turn on that crossing or not. So you might have to slow down a lot to be sure that if they turn on that crossing suddenly, you can stop in time. Alright? Now, just going to where you've got two, a very simple procedure again. We watch what's going on the crossing, and it works like this. If this is us, we're coming towards a crossing, and somebody is over there on that half of that crossing, we should be able to get across without them reaching the center before we get to the crossing. So we can cross on this side while they're coming towards a crossing. Whereas here, if someone is standing there, because this is one crossing, we can't go across if they're waiting on that side of the road. So if they're more than halfway across and they're walking towards this crossing, then you should stop, because by the time you get to the crossing, they'll be there. Alright? Obviously, if they're coming from this side and they're waiting there, then you've got to stop as well. Now, if someone comes along and they walk onto the crossing, you've stopped for them. Once they step onto the island, you can go on through behind them. Okay?
Yeah.
Similarly here, if anyone comes here and we're waiting for somebody and they come on this side, once they stepped off onto the pavement, you go across the crossing. Okay? Because you never know if they turn around, and you've got to be sure it's clear. Okay, so the crossing must be clear when you go across the crossings. Okay? Alright? Okay, so that's it, yeah? Good? Alright, now, traffic light control crossings. Now, you can go and look in your highway code and you'll see there are pelican, puffin, toucan, all these others. But essentially, it's just a question of knowing that there are light control crossings and knowing what the light sequences mean on those crossings. Okay? So again here we've got these telltale zigzag lines coming up to the crossing, and we've got the lights on either side. Now again, observe what's going on the pavements. Make sure you see if someone walks up to press buttons. Often you can actually physically see whether a button has been pressed or not, and we'll look at some of those things when we're out on the road today. Okay? Alright, and we can look at whether the crossing buttons have been pressed to know whether we need to take cognizance of slowing down or speeding up. Alright, so what we've got is we've got the zigzag lines, tells us we're approaching the crossing. Now, this sign will often precede, not always, but will often precede on your approach to the crossing. Okay, so you'll see that sign on your approach to the crossing. Okay? Alright, so when you approach the crossing, you look at what the lights say to you. Obviously, if it's green, you can go through, hold your speed to go through. If it's amber alone, right, it means it's going to be red, correct. And then if you get there and it changes to red and amber, it means it's going to change to green for you to go. Alright, but if it's flashing amber, okay, when that crossing is flashing amber, what does that mean? It means that
If someone's at the crossing, they can cross.
no, it means that if somebody is on the crossing, you have to let them cross.
Oh, okay.
Do you understand? Alright, but again, that rule always applies. But normally, the flashing amber means you can go as long as nobody is on the crossing. So let's say, for instance, we're here and we're ready to go, and we get a flashing amber, and somebody's over here, and they're walking in that direction. We can't go until they're off the crossing. So this remains a zebra crossing. So anybody occupying that crossing, right, on the flashing amber, you can't go. Now, the question here is, will you go if somebody is on that crossing? And the answer is obviously, even if it is green, you will not go if there's somebody on that crossing. Okay. So the flashing amber is just more a warning of a change in sequence on the lines. Yeah?
Yeah.
Alright. Because it's not advisable to start going across those crossings if somebody's occupying that crossing. And you would never go across. You should never go across that crossing, because you don't know how people are seeing, whether they can actually see the lights as well. You know, they might not even be able to see them. Alright, and then obviously this is two separate crossings as well. And you would have a situation where this crossing is from that side for the traffic on that side, and this is from that side. Okay, but I think the important things here are identifying again. Now, one last thing. What do these zigzag lines mean, and why are they there?
It means you can't drop anyone off, you can't stop at all.
Well, what do you do? So where do you stop? Back here?
No.
Okay, so that's not right, is it? What you're saying is you can't stop to drop off or pick up passengers in that area. You have to stop in that area when you're driving through. But it has another function as well. There's another reason for that. That was more or less all correct, yeah? Except don't say you can't stop there.
Okay.
Because otherwise then we have to stop back here. We're not going to be stopping on the stop line at the crossing, or just before the stop line at the crossing.
Is that the distance that you should need to brake? Something like that? No, I don't know.
It's a warning that you're approaching the crossing, but the other thing too is, while you are within these zigzag lines, you are not allowed to overtake any other vehicular traffic. Okay? And it is, as you quite rightly said, it is a no stopping area under any circumstances except to allow people to use the crossing. You don't stop and park your car there. You don't stop and pick up and drop off passengers in that area. And you do not overtake any other vehicular traffic, and that includes cyclists, and as one of my students did, overtook a milk cart which was going very slowly, and they started the overtake as they left the crossing, so they actually moved over the zigzag lines to the right thing. So that in that area you're not allowed. Now, any reason why do you think it is like that?
Because you can't see around the car in front of you necessarily.
Yeah, it's vision from the pedestrian's point of view and from the driver's point of view, but also so that everybody is focusing on what's happening on the crossing and not focusing on other things, and they're not seeing what's happening on the crossing. Okay? We're approaching the crossing now. Slow down a little bit just so we can have a look at this. Now, this one is just before, and we can see on the right there, look, it's not pressed. Yeah, keep to the left, we're going straight through. Obviously, you've got to negotiate this safely. Yeah, well, that's good. Now, it's slowly, yeah. Immediately we come off the roundabout, the mini roundabout, there's another crossing. You see that light control on the right, no buttons pressed, we're good to go, right?
Yeah.
So you can get a lot of information just by looking at what's going on, isn't it? More than just looking at the crossing. You don't have to rely only on the lights. You've got a lot of information coming off the thing. And remember, always keep an eye on your mirrors, because if you have to stop, you want to know what's behind you and you want to know what they do. Alright, so we're coming up again, slow down a little bit. Look on the right, not pressed, is it? Okay, we got pedestrians, but they're not moving towards the crossing. Another crossing coming up. You can see the lights up there. See the barriers on either side. Slow down a little bit. Again, there's someone coming towards it and they're going to press it. There, they press the button. See, it changes on the right. But because they've only just pressed it, it hasn't changed the light yet. Yeah?
Yeah.
Coming up to a crossing. We just watch on the sides to make sure we've got nobody approaching, and it's good. Well, that obviously is a single crossing all the way across the road. Yeah. Again, another zebra crossing coming up. You've got somebody on the left-hand side walking towards it there, so you can, two people on the left, see? So we can anticipate they're going to be using the crossing. You just got to wait until she's completely off the crossing. She steps onto the pavement, and you just got somebody on the right. Just make sure they're not coming as well. Classical door opening in front of a car. Alright, we're coming up to a crossing again. Now we've got somebody on the left going to use the crossing. Coming slowly, and we look well on the pavement, so it's clear. Driver crossing go. So you can anticipate what's going to happen on the crossing by looking on the pavements, right?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Okay, we're coming up to a crossing now. Just slow down a little bit so we can have a look at it. See the zigzag lines? Now look on the right. We can actually see that box on the right hasn't been pressed. Can you see that? As you approach the crossing, you can actually look at the box on the right hand side, and the section at the bottom where they press the button which says wait or come, gives you a little red band, whatever. You can see that that hasn't been pressed. So as you approach the crossings, we've got another crossing coming up. You can actually see whether it's been pressed or not. And obviously we're looking to see as people come and walk towards the crossing. Okay, now as we come up to this crossing, look over here on the crossing. Now there's someone walking there, but if you look on the right hand side again, no one's pressed the button. Can you see that? Yeah. So it's clear.